Y'all know what's going on. It's time for another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and welcome to the show, y'all. Last time we saw Marcus finally walk free after years of carrying the weight of his brother Tony's betrayal. But as Marcus took his first steps into the outside world, he was faced with a new question: what now? Today, we're diving into the next chapter of Marcus's journey, one of rebuilding, redemption, and the long shadow of his past. Marcus's release from prison was bittersweet. Freedom felt foreign. The world had changed in ways he couldn't have imagined. Smartphones, social media, even the way people talked at all felt overwhelming. And then there was the stigma. No matter how innocent he was, the label of ex followed him everywhere. Jobs were hard to come by and old friends were few and far between. The only constant in his life was his mother, who stood by him through it all. But Marcus wasn't about to let the world beat him down. He knew he needed a plan, so he started small. His first goal: finding steady work. After weeks of rejection, he finally landed a job at a local mechanic's shop. The owner, Mr. Harris, was a gruff but kind-hearted man who believed in second chances. It wasn't glamorous work, but for Marcus, it was a lifeline, a chance to prove to himself and others that he could build a new life from the ground up. Meanwhile, Tony's situation was growing more dire. Still locked up, he reached out to Marcus through letters. At first, Marcus ignored him, but as the weeks turned into months, curiosity got the better of him. One night, he sat down and read them all. They were filled with apologies, excuses, and pleas for forgiveness. Tony claimed he changed, that prison had forced him to confront the man he'd become. But Marcus couldn't shake the memory of Tony's lies and the years they had cost him. Despite his anger, something about Tony's letters stuck with Marcus. He began to wonder, could people really change? Could Tony? And more importantly, did he want to carry the weight of that anger for the rest of his life? These questions lingered in the back of his mind as he focused on rebuilding his life. One day, while working at the shop, Marcus had an idea. He'd always loved working with his hands, and the garage had become a kind of sanctuary for him. What if he could create a program to help others like him? People who'd been incarcerated, who just needed a second chance to prove themselves. The idea gave him a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. With the support of Mr. Harris and his mother, Marcus started laying the groundwork for what he called the Second Gear Initiative. It was slow going at first, money was tight, and there were plenty of skeptics. But Marcus's determination was unshakable. He knew what it felt like to be written off, and he was determined to show the world that people could rise above their past. Meanwhile, Tony's letters kept coming. In one of them, he revealed that he'd been helping younger inmates stay out of trouble, mentoring them in hopes they wouldn't make the same mistakes he did. It was hard for Marcus to believe, but the idea of Tony doing something good with his time gave him pause. Maybe his brother was finally starting to understand the weight of his actions. By the time the Second Gear Initiative launched its first program, Marcus had become a local hero. The initiative was small, but it made a big impact. Former inmates were learning skills, finding jobs, and turning their lives around. For the first time in a long time, Marcus felt like he was truly free, not just from prison, but from the bitterness that had once consumed him. But forgiveness? That was still a work in progress. Marcus hadn't written back to Tony, but he was beginning to consider it. Not for Tony's sake, but for his own. Letting go of the past didn't mean forgetting, and it didn't mean excusing what Tony had done. It meant freeing himself from the anger that held him captive for so long. Real quick before I end this episode, did y'all know studies show that 60% of youth in gangs come from single-parent homes, emphasizing the role of family dynamics? As we close this episode of Doing Time with Joe, let's remember rebuilding a life takes courage. Forgiveness takes strength. And sometimes the hardest person to forgive is the one who hurt you the most. This has been another episode of Doing Time with Joe. I'm your host, Joe Baker, and I say peace.
I'm getting so